Welcome to ArchViz Ascent. I'm Farzaneh. Have you ever struggled to find the perfect material for your architectural projects? Or found that ready-made assets just don't have the quality you're looking for? In this tutorial, you'll learn step-by-step how to create professional photorealistic materials from scratch. Today, we will create 4 different materials together, and with each one, I'll teach you new and valuable tips to fully master the process. By the end, you'll be able to create the exact materials you want, and you'll dramatically elevate the quality of your renders. So let's dive in. As I said in the previous session, my recommendation is to create a library for your materials. Import any material you download or create here. This method will save you a lot of time. I downloaded most of these materials from Quixel Bridge, which is now accessible through Fab. In the previous session, in addition to accessing free assets, I also explained how to get materials. As you can see, I have categorized different materials here, like stone, wood, fabric, concrete, and even dirt grounds, which I use a lot in my work. In the materials section, if I click on this magnifying glass, it shows me where it is saved. I'll double-click on the material. As you can see, we can even change the parameters and the maps themselves. If I click on this part, it shows me how the materials were created. Today, I'm going to show you how to create a material and also how to create a material instance. This way, by creating a material instance once, we can use it for different parts by changing its maps and parameters. 3 main maps. The first is called Albedo, which might be known as diffuse in other software. This is our main texture, which contains the color and pattern. The next one, which is known as normal everywhere, is used to make the material less flat and simulates its bumps and details. This map has 3 maps within it. If we only keep the blue channel on, we can use this map for height, and I will definitely provide a tutorial on that in the future. It is usually very useful for creating landscapes. If only the green channel is on, we can use this map for roughness, and if only the red channel is on, we can use it for ambient occlusion, which helps corners and seams look better and more natural. I will explain how to use these maps in this very session. I downloaded these materials from Quixel Bridge before, but from the beginning of 2025, we can access them through Fab. I'll click on Fab, and from here I can sign in. This way, I'll have access to some free materials in Quixel that were produced until the end of 2024, if you need more explanations on this. I fully explained it in the previous video, which is about accessing free assets. I'll put the link in the description. Just to give a brief explanation here, to access ready-made materials, I'll click on the materials section. I'll select the material I have in mind. I've chosen brick. Here we can also see a lot of free materials that we can easily use. I'll click on one of them, and from here I can select its quality. High quality is equivalent to 4K. I intend to teach you how to create these materials today. However, some materials, like glass, will be left for later sessions, or I will teach them during the project completion, because this session would get too long. I'll right-click in the content browser and click on New Folder. I'll give it a name. Try to always work in an organized way. Since I'm going to create a few materials, I'll also create a new folder here and give it a name. Finally, I'll right-click and click on Material. I'll double-click on it to open it. To create a material, we need the main maps that I explained to you a few minutes ago. I've already downloaded many of them. You can search on Google and download these maps. Even if you only have a diffuse texture, you can create the other maps with Photoshop or by using specialized websites. However, we don't have time for that in this session, but I might record a tutorial on it later. You can also search for it on Google. It's an easy task. Let's go and create this material together. I'll select a few of the main maps and drag them into the Unreal content browser. The first map is Albedo, then Normal and Roughness. If it also has an AO map, we'll use that. I'll drag them into the content browser. This white star icon shows that they are not saved, and if for any reason Unreal closes, they'll be lost, so it's better to save them. I'll select these 4 maps and drag them into the material window. If I select them all and right-click here, I can choose how to arrange them. We'll connect Albedo to base color. Here we can even choose a color for it, which I'll definitely show you later. And then save it. See, the material has a green line and is shown as a sphere. I'll select it and drag it onto the place where I want to assign this material. Now, if I want to change the size of each of these planks, I have to control it with UVs. If you have worked with 3ds Max before, you are fully familiar with this. If you are not, don't worry. We will learn it together here. We have 2 ways to control UVs, one during the material creation process and the other after assigning the material to the object. I'll press the U key on the keyboard and then I'll left click. I can work with these numbers here, or I can control the UVs in a simpler way. I'll press the M key on the keyboard and left click on the screen. If I press the number 1 key on the keyboard and click, I can control a numerical value. If I hold down the number 3 key on the keyboard and click, I can change a color value, for example, for the base color. You can also change the value of this number from here. The reason we don't see the changes on the material itself is that we haven't saved. Now I'll save it and you can see the texture size has changed. For now, we only have the texture, which means we can't see any bumps, roughness, or reflections on this material. I'll type sun in the search bar in the outliner window, select it, and from the details window, I can change its settings. I'll rotate the sun so that the light hits the floor material and I can adjust the amount of roughness and reflection. Roughness determines the matte level of the material, and we can either give it a number or a map. Here, since I have its map, I'll use that. I'll save it. I'll save it to see the changes. To use the normal map, I'll click on this RGB point, drag it, and search for flat normal. By using flat normal, we can control the intensity of the normal map. To determine the amount of flatness, we use a numerical value. One way to do this is to press the number 1 key on the keyboard and left click on the screen. Now, I'll connect the flat normal to the material's normal. Okay, I'll save it to see the change. When the flatness value is 1, it has the least effect. And when it's 0, its effect is completely noticeable. Okay, I'll enter different values so you can see their effects and learn this topic completely. We'll also connect the AO map to ambient occlusion. This map is used to make the material look natural. For example, it makes the corners and seams more defined and gives a more natural look to the details. I have changed the UV value on the surface here. You see, the normal map's place has remained. We need to change the size of all the maps together. If I connect the UV to the normal map, the size of this map and the base color will be equal, and the lines will align perfectly. Okay, so we'll do the same for the rest of the maps. That is, we'll connect the UV to them, so that by changing the UV value, all the maps change together and are perfectly aligned. Each time we want to see the result of the changes, we have to save. Later, I'll show you a way to see the final result on the material at the same time as we make the changes. Okay, let's go and create another material. I'll create a new folder and name it Stone. Now I'll right-click and select Material. I've already downloaded the maps I need for this. To create it, I'll select the Albedo or Diffuse, Normal and Roughness maps, and drag them into the content browser. I'll double-click on the material to open it. If I click and drag on this top tab, I can change its position. I'll add it as a tab to my main page. I just have to grab it, drag it, and put it on the top bar. Now I'll select all the maps and drag them onto the material creation page. I'll select them, right-click, and from the alignment section, I can choose the arrangement. If I right-click on the base color and select Promote to Parameter, it gives us the option to choose a color while it is a parameter, and we can use it in a material instance in the future. Another way is to press the number 3 feet key on the keyboard and click on the screen. If I want to use it in a material instance, I have to convert it to a parameter, which I will show you in the next steps. But when I right-click on the base color itself, it creates the color as a parameter. Okay, I'll save it and assign the material to the floor. For the base color, we can either give it a map or use a color. I'll double-click on the color, and now I can change its color. Now I'll delete the color. I'll right-click on the Albedo texture and click on Convert to Parameter. I'll write a name for it and do the same for the other textures. From this section, we can also change the name. From here, we can write a name for its group. This way, controlling the parameters becomes easier. I'll show you in a few minutes. To control the normal, I'll use a flattened normal and connect it to the material's normal. To easily control the material parameters, I'll right-click on the material I've created and click on Create Material Instance, I'll double-click on it to open it. From this top tab, by clicking and dragging, I can determine its position and size. I'll resize the window and place it next to the screen to see the changes. Now I'll select the new material instance that I created and drag it onto the floor. Of course, this is one of the ways to assign a material. The other way is through the Details window and the Material section, which I have done before and will do again in the future so that you become familiar with all the ways of assigning materials to objects. For each of these boxes that I check, that section becomes editable. Since we have created a parameter, we can now create a new material by clicking and dragging other textures. It's as simple as that. The parent material is the same material we initially created and from which we took an instance. We can bring it in from the content browser or we can click on it right from here. Okay, I'll enter the parent material. To control the size of the textures, I'll press the U key on the keyboard and click on the screen. To control a numerical value, I'll press the M key on the keyboard and click on the screen. Now, any number we give it will be multiplied by the value of 1, which is the default for UV. To be able to change the value parametrically, I'll right-click and click on Promote to Parameter. From this section, I can give it a name. If I select the whole thing and press the C key on the keyboard, I can give a name to the entire set. This makes the material creation process very organized when building complex materials. Now I'll connect from the multiply node to the UVs of all the textures. I'll place the UV in the UV group to make it easier to manage in the material instance settings. Now I'll take a save of it so I can make the final adjustments in the material instance. As you can see in the settings, we have base color, normal roughness, and also UV. This way, we can find each title very easily and our work progresses faster. Now it's not showing any material, but it's showing us the floor material as a color. This is because I've set the UVW to 0. By changing this number, we can control the size of the floor material. We can simultaneously view the changes in the settings by looking at the sphere next to the material. But I prefer to minimize the material instance window and observe the changes directly on the object itself. We don't have a numerical value to control the normal. So I'll go into the main material, right-click on the flatness node, and select Promote to Parameter. Or I can press the 1 key on the keyboard and click on the screen. Now to convert it into a parameter, I'll right-click and select Convert to Parameter. You can use whichever method is easier for you. You can see that this option has been added here and placed under the Normal subgroup because we chose Normal for its group. Pay close attention to the image. When I change the flatness value, the amount of bumpiness also changes. We can also select negative values for it, and this way, it can appear either sunken or raised. As I said before, this white star icon next to each texture shows that they haven't been saved yet, and they'll be lost if we close Unreal. So I'll save them from the content browser. Alright, let's go and create this material together. I'll click here and then on the magnifying glass icon to find the material's location. After that, I can select it all, or I can just select the material, because for migration, it will recover all the textures and transfer them to the destination content browser. I'll right-click, select Actions, and then Migrate. Alright, I only want to use the textures of this material and teach you a few things. I'll right-click, select Material, and enter it. I'll select all 3 textures and drag them into my material creation page. The difference between our textures and the previous ones is that we have an RGB map to get 3 other maps, which I explained to you at the beginning of the video. Now I'm going to show you how to use it. I'll organize the textures. I'll press the U key on the keyboard, click on the screen, then press N for multiply and click. For the numerical value, I'll right-click on it and select it. I'll explain these parts faster since we've already done them and you've learned them. When there are a lot of textures and connecting the multiply node might clutter the space, we can create a button for it by clicking and dragging and typing its name. Then, wherever we want, we can type that name on the screen and use it. It's like we've connected the multiply node to that texture from here. We can do this for all the parameters, which I'll teach you in a future session on creating landscape materials. For now, I just want you to get familiar with it. I'll write a name for it. I'll select the whole set and press the C key and choose a name for it again. I highly recommend doing this for organizing the creation of materials. If only the blue color is on, this map is used for height, which is very useful in creating landscape materials. We will definitely work with this in the future. If the green is on, it is used for roughness, and if only the red is on, it is used for ambient occlusion. So, I will connect red to ambient occlusion and green to roughness. We are not using blue right now. For using the UVs, I'll search for UV on the screen, which is the name I chose for it, and I'll connect it to the base color. I can also use it for the rest of the textures. I can search for UV again and connect it to the UVs of the textures. Okay, now for the textures to also become parameters, we'll right-click on them. Select Convert to Parameter, give them a name, and place each of them in its own group. I'll save and open the material instance. This material instance must be assigned to the floor. Now, I don't see the changes I'm making in the material instance on the image because I've assigned the original material to the floor. We should always be careful to grab the material instance, drag and drop it onto the object, or from the Details window. Click on the arrow in the Material section. When our material instance is selected, it will be assigned to the object. Another way to change the size of textures is to adjust the UV from the Modeling section. click here and select Modeling. Since the content browser is open, I can't see the UV. I have to click on this arrow. If I close the content browser, I can see it very easily. For our work, the most useful option is Project. This one is very useful, so pay close attention and learn it well. Of course, we'll be working with it a lot, so you'll get the hang of it later. I'll select the floor and click on Project. If I click on this arrow, everything returns to the default state. Now we can make the adjustments ourselves. This shows the texture projection mode. Plane is used for a flat surface. Box is for objects with multiple faces that are cube-like. And cylinder is used for objects that are cylindrical and curved. I'll set it to box. Even though we only see one face here, and plane would also work. But if parts of the floor are visible from the sides, it's better to set it to box. I always use box. By changing the X, Y, and Z values, we can determine the size of each of these tiles along these axes. Change them and look at the screen to choose your desired size. When setting the sizes, be sure to pay attention to the edges of the objects to make sure they are correct. We can also adjust it from the translation section. From the rotation section, we can determine the rotation of the texture. You can enter a numerical value. For example, sometimes we need to rotate the texture 90 degrees. We'll simply type in 90 degrees and it rotates. This way, we can easily change the orientation of the textures. If I click on the arrow, it returns to the default settings. You see, the texture's direction is changed. With translation, we can move the textures without changing their size and adjust their position. We can use presets to get things done faster. I can save the settings I just made by selecting Create New Preset and giving it a name. It will stay here, and for future projects, I can come back and select it. These names you see here are presets I made before. And if I select them now, they will apply their settings to this material's UVs. Okay, I'll click on Accept and go back to selection mode. These settings are not correct right now. I only accepted them to show you the method. Otherwise, the size of the wood planks is not natural and they should be smaller. Now I can also adjust the size using the UVs. So we've learned two ways to adjust the texture size on an object. Alright, let's go and create a metal material together. To be able to create a material instance, we'll create parameters from the very beginning. I'll click on base color and select Promote to Parameter. For metals, water, and glass, we'll use metallic. With this, we can control the amount of light reflection. I'm going to create a steel material here, so I'll double click and choose a very light gray color, not black or white. If I set the numerical value from metallic to 1, it means I've chosen the maximum amount of light reflection for it. I'll save the material and assign it to this table, for example. Specular is also used for light reflection. Now, whether this reflection is transparent or matte is controlled by specular and roughness. If we set it to 1, our reflection is transparent. We'll make it a parameter from the very beginning. We can create groups for these, but I don't see the need right now because I don't want to waste time. To control the parameters of my material, I'll create a material instance. I'll double click on it. And by checking these boxes, we can change the numerical value and even the color of the base color. I'll assign the material instance to the table. Now I can change its color. For roughness, if we select a value of 1, it means the surface is very rough. So the light reflection will be very matte and very low. This is for surfaces that don't have much reflection. But if we choose a very low value, for example 0.01, since we've set specular to 1, it will have a clear reflection and is very useful for metals. With roughness, we can control the amount of light reflection on metals. If we want a matte surface, we should increase the roughness value. In addition to selecting values between 0 and 1, we can also use colors for metallic, specular, and roughness. The 0 and 1 values represent a ratio between black and white. That is, by pressing the 3 key on the keyboard and left-clicking, I can assign a color value to them. For example, if you set metallic to black, it's like we've selected the value to 0. If it's white, it's equivalent 1, and it becomes very reflective. I'll choose the value of 1 for specular to make the material look better. I'll also choose a numerical value for roughness. If this value is low, we can see high transparency and reflection in the material. If we set the roughness to 1, it becomes completely matte, and we no longer see the reflection of the sky and objects in the table. Now I'll decrease the roughness, and I'll also decrease the specular. It has a slight matte and reflection. If I decrease the metallic value, it also decreases. Be sure to play with these values so you get the hang of it. If we want our table to have a pattern, we have to choose a black and white texture with a pattern for roughness, not just a number. Let's go and test the material. I'll select the object in my material and I'll assign it from this arrow. For objects that have multiple materials, a few elements are considered in the material section of the details window, and each one controls the material of one section. So to change the material of each section, it's better to come here than to drag the material and drop it on the object. You can use the same methods I've described to create other materials like fabric and carpet, as long as you have their textures. However, I will teach you materials like water and glass in future sessions. As I explained in the 3rd session of the ArchViz Masterclass series, if you have exported an object from V-Ray or Corona as a UData file, Unreal reads all of its materials, and there's no need to create separate materials for them. This makes our work much faster. This sofa is one of the files I downloaded from Epic Games, and if I select it and click on this magnifying glass, it shows me the location of its material. I'll double-click on the material. You can see it's similar to the material instance we created. Its parameters are also controllable, and by changing the Albedo texture, we can change its color and pattern. We can even change the normal or other textures without needing to create this material from scratch. We just need to download its textures from the internet. To activate it, we just need to click on this box. Then we can drag the texture onto this part, or when the texture is selected, we can click on this arrow icon. We can also find it from the window next to it, but it might be a little difficult. Please look at the material of this table. I'll double-click on it. It's made with only 2 parameters, normal and base color. It's better for us to use more complete parameters for creating materials, like the ones we've created, so the material looks more natural. Okay, now let's go and look at this carpet's material. I'll click on the rent button to open the material. Since this material was created in V-Ray and we exported it as a U-data file, it is slightly different from the usual method of creating materials in Unreal. In this session, we learned the basics of creating materials. I'll teach you the other things like water, glass, and other materials in the form of a project, or if you'd like, you can tell me in the comments and I'll teach you them separately. Congratulations! We have now mastered the foundational skills to create professional materials like wood, stone, and metal in Unreal Engine. Understanding how to build your own materials gives you incredible creative control and dramatically improves the realism of your renders. In the next tutorial, we'll continue our masterclass by focusing on more advanced techniques and other material types. We'll explore materials that require transparency and refraction, like water and glass, in future projects. You won't want to miss it. If this tutorial was helpful, please give this video a like and subscribe to the ArchViz Ascent channel. Your support helps me create more valuable content for you. Feel free to ask any questions in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.